Tonight, we are going to walk together through some very old and very beautiful ideas. They come from the Zen Buddhist tradition, from teachers who spent their lives exploring one simple question: what does it mean to truly be at peace? Not the kind of peace that depends on everything going well, not the kind that requires the world to be quiet, but a peace that is already here, underneath everything, waiting to be noticed. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. There is a phrase in the ancient teachings that says, "Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine." Tonight, we will explore what that might feel like. We will discover that there is a place in us that is already at rest, no matter what is happening around us. We will see how much of what weighs us down is lighter than we think. And we will explore, gently, what happens when we stop carrying so much and allow ourselves, even for a few moments, to simply be here without the heavy work of being someone. So let the day, with all its noise and effort, begin to fall away. You are welcome here just as you are. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin our journey together. Most of us carry a quiet belief that we have never thought to question. It runs beneath our days, like an underground river, shaping everything. The belief is this: in order to feel at peace, our circumstances must first become peaceful. In order to rest, the world around us must become restful. In order to feel okay, everything must be okay. It sounds so reasonable that we hardly notice we are thinking it. And yet, if you look at it closely, this belief is the very thing that keeps peace just out of reach. Because the world is always changing. The circumstances are always shifting. And if our peace depends on everything going right, then we are always waiting. Always almost there, but not quite. Tonight, we begin with a teaching that has been offered for thousands of years, and it starts with a question that is both simple and radical. What if peace does not depend on your circumstances at all? In the old Buddhist texts, there is a scene that appears again and again. The Buddha would visit someone who was unwell, someone whose body was giving them great difficulty. And the conversation would often begin very simply. "How are you feeling?" The Buddha would ask. "Are your pains easing?" And the person would reply honestly, "No, teacher. They are not easing. They are growing stronger." And then the Buddha would offer something remarkable. Not a cure, not a remedy, not even a promise that things would improve. He would say, very gently, "Though your body is afflicted, let your mind remain unafflicted." Let us sit with that for a moment. Though your body is afflicted, let your mind remain unafflicted. It is such a quiet instruction. There is no force in it, no demand. Just an invitation to discover that the mind does not have to follow the body into its suffering. That there is something in us, something we might call awareness, or knowing, or simply the mind that notices, and this something does not have to hurt just because the body does. This is not about ignoring pain. It is not about pretending. It is about recognizing that there may be a place in us that is already at rest, even when the surface is troubled. Like the bottom of a lake. The surface may be choppy, stirred by wind and weather. But down below, where the water is deep, there is stillness. There has always been stillness. Let us explore a story that brings this teaching to life. There was a practitioner who had been studying the ways of the mind for many years. One winter, This person traveled with a few dear friends to a warm and beautiful coastline for a short holiday. It was the kind of place where the air itself feels soft, where you can smell the ocean before you see it. The water was clear and turquoise, so clear that you could stand at the edge and watch small fish darting over white sand below the surface. In the mornings, they would walk along the shore just after sunrise, when the sand was cool and smooth, and the light made everything glow with a kind of golden gentleness. They would sit together and eat fresh fruit, papaya, and mango, while the waves kept their slow and patient rhythm. In the evenings, the sky would turn the colors of a painting, gold and rose and soft violet, and the breeze carried the smell of salt and tropical flowers. Everything was pleasant. Every sight, every sound, every sensation. The warmth on the skin, the sound of the water, the taste of sweetness in the morning, the easy laughter of friends. It was, by any ordinary measure, a perfect experience. The kind of week where you think to yourself, this is how life should always feel. And then the holiday ended, as holidays always do. And this person returned home to a place deep in the northern countryside where winter had settled in with a kind of fierce determination. The temperature had dropped far below freezing. The trees were bare, the sky was heavy and grey, and the wind was sharp and biting. The kind of cold that stings your face the moment you step outside and makes your eyes water. The kind that finds its way through every layer of clothing and settles into your bones. So here was a rather dramatic contrast. 1 week, warmth and beauty and ease. The next, bitter cold and grey skies and the long quiet endurance of winter. And on one of those freezing walks, bundled up against the wind, hands deep in pockets, breath turning to mist, something remarkable happened. Not a vision, not a sudden burst of insight, just a quiet noticing, the kind that arrives so softly you almost miss it. This person realized that the mind which had known the warmth of the coast, the blue water, the golden light, the sweetness of fruit, and the mind which was now knowing this sharp, bitter cold, the grey sky, the aching fingers, was the same mind. The knowing had not changed. The pleasant experience had been known. The unpleasant experience was being known. But the knowing itself, that gentle awareness underneath it all, was identical. It was not warm in one case and cold in the other. It was not happy on the coast and miserable in the snow. It was simply knowing, simply aware, simply present. This is what the Buddha was pointing to. There is a quality of awareness in each of us that is not damaged by what it touches. It knows pleasure without becoming pleasure. It knows discomfort without becoming discomfort. Like a mirror that reflects fire and snow with equal clarity. The flames do not scorch the glass. The frost does not crack it. The mirror simply shows what is there and remains itself. There is a beautiful line from the Buddhist tradition that says, "The mind in its natural state is clear and luminous." Not clear because everything is going well. Not luminous because the day has been easy. Clear and luminous by its very nature. This is what we are invited to discover. Not to create something new, but to notice something that has been here all along. And this connects to the heart of tonight's theme, this idea of becoming no one. Because when we rest in awareness itself, when we stop identifying so tightly with the pleasant and the unpleasant, something begins to soften. We start to hold our experience more lightly. We are no longer someone who is having a good day or a bad day. We are not someone who is succeeding or failing, winning or losing. We are simply the knowing, the open, quiet knowing. And in that knowing, there is a kind of freedom that does not depend on anything at all. Let us explore another story about this teaching. There was once an old teacher who lived in a small monastery in the mountains. The monastery was a simple place, just a few wooden buildings surrounded by pine trees, where the air smelled clean, and the only sounds were birdsong and the occasional ringing of a bell. Students would come from far away to sit with this teacher, often arriving tired and discouraged, carrying the weight of their own expectations. And many of them came with the same question. They would say, "Teacher, how do I find peace? My mind is so busy. My life is so difficult. How do I make it stop?" And the teacher would always smile and offer them tea. Not quickly, not as a formality, but slowly, with great care, as if the making of tea were itself a kind of teaching. And while they drank, the teacher would say very little. Sometimes the teacher would simply sit with them in silence for a long while, and the student would begin to feel restless, wondering when the real instruction would begin. But the teacher understood something. Sometimes the most important teaching is not in the words. It is in the silence between them. One day, a young student arrived after a long and difficult journey. This student was exhausted and frustrated, having spent years in practice without finding the peace that had been promised. "Teacher," the student said, setting down a cup of tea with both hands, "I have been meditating for years, and I still cannot find peace. Every time I sit, there is pain in my body and thoughts racing through my mind like wild horses. I cannot make it quiet. What am I doing wrong?" The teacher poured more tea slowly, watching the steam rise, and then asked, "When the pain is in your body and the thoughts are racing, who is the one who notices all of this?" The student paused. "I suppose I am. And tell me," the teacher continued, his voice as steady as the mountain beneath them, "is that one, the one who notices, is that one in pain?" The student sat with this for a moment. The question was so simple, and yet it opened something. "I am not sure. I have never looked." "Then sit with that," the teacher said gently. "Do not try to stop the pain. Do not try to stop the thoughts. Just be curious about the one who notices. Is that one suffering? Go and look, and come back when you have seen something." The student returned to meditation with this question alive in the heart, not as a puzzle to solve, but as a doorway to walk through. And over the days that followed, something began to shift. Not the pain. The pain was still there, visiting as it always had. Not the thoughts. They continued to come and go like weather. But the student began to notice something underneath it all. A space. A quiet, open space that was aware of the pain without being defined by it. Aware of the thoughts without being carried away by them. A space that was, in its own way, perfectly still. When the student returned to the teacher a few days later, there was a different quality in the student's eyes. Softer, more settled, like a lake that had been stirred but was now finding its way back to calm. "I think I understand," the student said quietly. "The knowing is not suffering, even when everything else is." The teacher smiled, that same unhurried smile. "Now you have found something that no one can take from you. Not time, not difficulty, not even the changing of all things. It is always here." This is not an idea reserved for monks or masters. This is available to all of us. right here, right now. You do not need to go to a monastery or sit for 10 hours or achieve any special state. You only need to notice. Right now, as you are lying here, or sitting, or resting, there are sensations in your body. Maybe the weight of a blanket, maybe warmth or coolness, maybe some ache or tiredness. And there are sounds, perhaps, reaching your ears. And there are thoughts, perhaps, drifting through your mind like clouds through a wide sky. All of this is being known. Something in you is gently, effortlessly aware of all of it. And that awareness, that knowing, is not tired. It is not aching. It is not worried. It is simply here. It has always been here. The Buddha once said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard. In the felt, there is only the felt." He was pointing us toward this direct, simple awareness. Before we add our stories, our preferences, our judgments, there is just this: seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing. And in that simplicity, there is a peace that is hard to describe, but easy to taste. One of the things that makes this teaching so beautiful is that it asks nothing of us. It does not ask us to change our circumstances. It does not ask us to be different or better. It does not ask us to fix the body or silence the mind. It simply invites us to notice what is already true. And what is already true is this: you have been aware your whole life. Through every joy and every sorrow, through every restful night and every restless one, something in you has been quietly, faithfully knowing. And that knowing has never been harmed by any of it. Think of the very first thing you remember from your life. Some early memory, perhaps a color, a feeling, a face. That memory is known. And now think of this very moment, lying here, listening. This too is known. The knowing is the same. It has not aged. It has not grown tired. It was there at the very beginning, and it is here now, unchanged. In the Zen tradition, they sometimes call this original mind or beginner's mind. Not the mind that has learned 1,000 things and is weighed down by all of them, but the mind that is always fresh, always open, always meeting the world as if for the first time. A great Zen teacher once said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind there are few." This original mind is not something we need to build or earn or search for in distant places. It is what we are when we stop adding anything extra. When we become, even for a moment, no one in particular. Just this. Just aware. Just here. And this is the gentle secret at the heart of tonight's theme. To become no one is not to vanish. It is not to lose yourself. It is, in a way, the very opposite. It is to find what you have always been, beneath the layers of effort and identity and striving. The awareness that was here before you learned your own name. The knowing that will be here after all the stories of the day have faded into silence. When we let go of the need to be someone, to be the one who is doing well or doing poorly, the one who is strong or the one who is struggling, what remains is this luminous, simple awareness. And it is at peace. It has always been at peace. There is a practice, gentle and simple, that grows naturally from this understanding. And you can try it right now if you like, or simply listen and let the idea rest in you like a seed in warm soil. Whatever you are feeling in this moment, let it be there. You do not need to change it. If there is comfort, let it be. If there is some discomfort, let that be too. And then, very gently, turn your attention not to what is being felt, but to the awareness that is doing the feeling. Not to the sensation, but to the space in which the sensation appears. What is that space like? Is it heavy or light? Is it troubled or still? Most people, when they really look, find that awareness itself is remarkably quiet, remarkably at ease, like a sky that holds every kind of weather without being disturbed by any of it. Clouds come and go. Rain falls. Sun breaks through. But the sky is always the sky. It does not argue with the clouds. It does not chase the sun. It simply holds it all with a kind of effortless generosity. You are that sky. You have always been that sky. The weather of your life, pleasant and unpleasant, joyful and sorrowful, is simply weather. It passes through, and you remain. As the Buddha gently reminded us, all conditioned things are impermanent. The warmth and the cold, the comfort and the difficulty, they come and they go. But the awareness in which they appear is not itself a conditioned thing. It is not made of the same stuff as the weather. It is the space in which the weather moves. And that space, your truest nature, does not come and go. It is simply here. This is the beginning of a very deep rest. Not the rest that comes from things going well, but the rest that comes from discovering that something in you is already well and has always been well, no matter what. Let us pause here for a moment. Notice how you are feeling right now, just as you are. There is no right or wrong way to feel. And when you are ready, we will continue together. There is a small and wonderful story that begins with a bird. Not a wise bird. Not a noble bird perched on a mountaintop with something profound to teach. Just an ordinary bird doing something that might make you smile, and that might, if you sit with it gently, change the way you see your own life. But before we get to the bird, let us notice something together. All day long, from the moment we wake until the moment we fall asleep, we are seeing. We are hearing, we are interpreting, and we trust our interpretations completely. We look at the world and we think, yes, this is how it is. That person is kind. That person is difficult. This situation is good. That one is bad. We walk through our days as if we are looking through a perfectly clear window, seeing everything exactly as it is. But what if the window is not as clear as we think? A Buddhist scholar once observed that we see the world not as it is, but through the lenses of our wants, our worries, and our old habits. And then we take what we see through those lenses and treat it as the simple truth. This is such an honest and important thing to notice. Not because it means the world is unreal or that we cannot trust anything, but because it means that much of what causes us difficulty, much of what keeps us tangled up and tense, is not actually out there in the world. It is in the lens. It is in the filter we are looking through without realizing there is a filter at all. And this is where our bird comes in. Let us explore this story. It happened on a warm afternoon in a wide gravel lot where a few cars were parked beneath the shade of some trees. A meditation practitioner was walking slowly back and forth in this lot as part of a quiet walking practice when something caught their eye. At the back of one of the parked cars, down near the bumper where the metal was polished and shining, a small bird had landed. It was a common bird, nothing remarkable about it at all. But this bird had noticed something in that shining bumper. It had seen its own reflection. And the bird, seeing what it believed to be another bird, did what birds sometimes do when they see a rival. It flew straight at it, wings out, beak forward, full of determination. And of course it hit the bumper and bounced off and landed on the ground, a little stunned. And then it looked up, and there was the other bird again, right there in the bumper, staring back. So it flew at it again, hit the bumper, fell back, looked up. The other bird was still there, still staring, still apparently undefeated. And it did this again, and again, and again. Now, the practitioner watching all of this could not help but feel a wave of tenderness for this little creature. It was so earnest, so committed, so utterly convinced that what it was seeing was real, and yet it was fighting nothing but its own reflection. There was no other bird. There never had been. Just a polished surface throwing back an image, and a small, determined heart that could not tell the difference. It is a funny story, and it is meant to be. There is something deeply lovable about that bird, something familiar. Because how often do we do the very same thing? We see something in the world, or in another person, or in ourselves, and we react to it as if it were the solid, certain truth. We fly at it with all our energy. We argue with it. We worry about it. We build whole stories around it. And sometimes, if we are honest, we bounce off it and come back and do it all over again. And very often, what we were reacting to was a reflection, a projection of our own mind, our own fears, our own old habits, landing on the polished surface of the world and staring back at us as if it was something real. The Buddha had a phrase for this. He spoke of papanka, which is sometimes translated as mental proliferation, though that sounds more complicated than it needs to. What it really means is the way the mind takes something simple, a sight, a sound, a brief encounter, and spins it into a whole elaborate story. We see a look on someone's face, and within seconds we have decided what it means, what they are thinking, whether they like us or not, and what we should do about it. We have created an entire world out of a single glance, and then we react to that world as if we built it out of bricks and mortar, when really it is made of nothing more than thought. Consider how often this happens with the people around us, even people we see every day. Let us explore another small story. Imagine someone attending a gathering, perhaps a quiet community dinner or a weekend event. They do not know many people there, and as they look around the room, something begins to happen almost immediately, so quickly and so quietly that they do not even notice it is happening. They see a person sitting in the corner with a very still, composed expression, and a thought arises. That person seems cold, unfriendly, probably judging everyone. They see another person laughing brightly with a small group, and a thought arises. That person seems confident, probably popular, probably has an easy life. They see someone sitting alone, looking down at their hands, and a thought arises. That person seems sad, lonely. Maybe they do not fit in. 3 people, 3 stories, and not a single word has been exchanged with any of them. The person in the corner might be deeply shy and hoping desperately that someone will come and say hello. The person laughing might be covering a terrible heartache with brightness, the way some people do. The person looking at their hands might be perfectly content, simply resting, enjoying the quiet. We do not know. We almost never know. And yet the stories arise so quickly, so automatically, that we take them for truth. We walk through our lives surrounded not so much by people as by the stories we have made up about people. And then we relate to the stories. We are friendly to the ones whose stories we like and distant from the ones whose stories make us uneasy. And all the while, the actual person is right there, waiting to be seen. Let us stay with this gathering a little longer, because something interesting happens next. Later in the evening, the person who had been forming all these silent judgments happens to sit down near the one who had been in the corner, the one who seemed cold and unfriendly. And because the evening has reached that comfortable point where conversation happens naturally, they begin to talk. "Have you been to one of these before?" the person asks, not expecting much. And the one from the corner looks up with an expression of such genuine warmth that it is almost startling. "No, this is my first time," they say softly. "To be honest, I was not sure I should come. I am not very good in groups. I tend to go quiet, and I worry that people think I do not want to be here." "Oh," the person says. And in that single syllable, a whole story collapses. The cold, unfriendly stranger disappears, and in their place is simply a person. A shy, kind, hopeful person who was doing their best. They talk for a while longer, and by the end of the evening, this quiet stranger from the corner has become someone the person feels genuinely fond of. And walking home afterward, there is a kind of wonder in it. How wrong the story was. How completely and confidently wrong. This happens to all of us, again and again. We meet the real person, and the story dissolves like mist in morning sunlight. And for a moment, we see clearly. We see someone as they actually are. And almost always, what we see is more interesting, more complex, and more lovable than the story we had made up. There is a line from the Buddhist teachings that says, "In the scene, let there be just the scene." Just seeing before the stories. Just hearing before the interpretations. Just this person in front of us before the judgments. It sounds so simple. And in a way, it is. The difficulty is not in the doing. It is in the remembering. There is a beautiful teaching in the Buddhist tradition that speaks to this directly. It is the understanding that what we call seeing is rarely just seeing. What we call hearing is rarely just hearing. Almost always, layered on top of the raw experience, there is a film of interpretation, of preference, of old memory, of habit. And this film is so thin, so transparent, that we look right through it without knowing it is there. Imagine wearing a pair of tinted glasses that you have had on for so long you have forgotten you are wearing them. Everything you see has a slight color to it, a warmth or a coolness that you take to be the color of the world itself. You walk through a garden and think the flowers are a certain shade. You look at the sky and think it is a certain blue. You look at the faces of people you love and think you are seeing them clearly. And in a sense you are seeing, but you are seeing through something, and you do not know it is there. And then one day, someone very gently asks you, "Have you noticed the glasses?" And you reach up, and you feel them on your face, and you realize, oh, the world is not this color. I am this color. The tint is mine. That moment, that small, quiet moment of recognizing the glasses is one of the most freeing moments a person can have. Not because it solves everything, Not because the glasses immediately come off and the world is suddenly pure and clear, but because it loosens the grip. It introduces a little space between what we see and what we believe about what we see. And in that space, something wonderful becomes possible. We can meet the world and the people in it a little more freshly, a little more honestly, a little closer to how they actually are, rather than how our old habits have painted them. The glasses are made of many things. They are made of old experiences, of things we were told as children, of hurts we have carried, of preferences we have held so long they feel like facts. And recognizing them does not mean we have to throw them all away at once. It simply means we know they are there. And that knowing, that simple, honest knowing, changes everything. It is the difference between being lost in a dream and knowing that you are dreaming. This is connected, in a very tender way, to the theme we have been exploring together tonight. When we begin to notice the lenses, when we begin to see that so much of what we react to is our own reflection in the bumper, something starts to soften. The urgency fades a little. The need to be right, to judge, to sort everyone into categories of good and bad, it starts to loosen. And in that loosening, something interesting happens to the sense of self. Because so much of who we think we are is built out of these reactions. I am the one who likes this person and dislikes that one. I am the one who was treated unfairly. I am the one who is better than some and worse than others. Take away the reactions, and what is left? Something lighter, something simpler, something closer to just being here, seeing what is here, without all the extra weight. There is a story from the Zen tradition about an old teacher who was known for an unusual kind of calm. Nothing seemed to disturb this teacher. Good news, bad news, praise, criticism, all of it was met with the same gentle steadiness. One day, a student asked, "Teacher, how is it that nothing seems to affect you? Do you not have opinions? Do you not see what is happening around you?" The teacher said, "I see very clearly, perhaps more clearly than before, but I have stopped adding anything to what I see." The student considered this. "What do you mean, adding?" "When I was younger," the teacher said, "I would see a rainy day and add the thought, 'This is a bad day.' I would meet a person and add the thought, 'This is a difficult person.' I would hear criticism and add the thought, 'I am not enough.' Now I see the rain. I meet the person. I hear the words, but I have stopped adding. And without the adding, everything is much simpler and much more peaceful." This is what the old Zen teachers meant when they spoke of just seeing. A student once asked a different teacher, "What is the essence of your teaching?" And the teacher replied simply, "Attention." The student waited for more, but the teacher only said again, "Attention, attention, attention." Not attention in the sense of straining or concentrating, but attention in the sense of seeing clearly, seeing what is actually here before the mind adds its commentary, its judgments, its elaborate stories. Just seeing, just hearing, just being present with what is, as it is. This kind of attention is not a skill reserved for meditators or monks. It is something each of us already knows how to do. We do it naturally when we are in the presence of great beauty, a sunset, a sleeping child, a sky full of stars. In those moments, the mind grows quiet on its own. We stop adding. We stop judging. We just see. And for that moment, everything is whole and complete, exactly as it is. Nothing needs to be changed. Nothing needs to be fixed. The glasses come off without any effort at all. The invitation of the Buddhist path is simply to notice that this kind of seeing is available not only in moments of beauty, but always. In the ordinary moments, in the difficult moments, even in the moments when the bird in us is flying at the bumper again, we can notice, we can smile, we can feel the tenderness of being a creature who gets confused. And in that noticing, in that tenderness, we are already seeing more clearly. And when we do that, even for a moment, we discover something that the bird at the bumper never could. We discover that the reflection is not real, that the other bird was never there, and that there is nothing to fight, nothing to attack, nothing to defend against. There is only this moment, and it is, in its own quiet way, enough. So as you rest here tonight, you might notice, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in the coming days, a moment when a quick judgment arises about someone. A story forms, a reaction begins, and in that moment, you might remember the bird, you might feel a gentle smile, and you might wonder, just for a second, am I seeing clearly? Or am I seeing my own reflection? You do not need to answer the question. Just asking it is enough. Just noticing is enough. The glasses begin to come off all by themselves, one gentle moment at a time. Let us pause here for a moment. Let the stories settle, like leaves drifting down to rest on still water. And when you are ready, we will continue together. Think, for a moment, about the last time you wanted something. It does not have to be anything grand. Maybe it was a warm drink on a cold afternoon. Maybe it was a quiet evening after a long week. Maybe it was just the wish for a few more minutes of sleep this morning. Something simple, something ordinary. Now, if you can, recall not the thing you wanted, but the wanting itself. What did it feel like in your body? In your chest? In your thoughts? Was there a kind of leaning in it, a reaching forward, a tightness? And then, when you finally got the thing, or when the wanting simply faded on its own, what was that moment like? Most of us have never been asked this question. We spend our whole lives wanting things, one after another, but we almost never turn around and look at the wanting itself. Tonight, we are going to do just that. And what we find may surprise us. There is a belief that almost all of us share. It is so deep, so natural, so obvious that it hardly seems like a belief at all. It feels more like a fact. And the belief is this: pleasant experiences are good, and unpleasant experiences are bad. It seems so reasonable. Of course we want what is pleasant. Of course we avoid what is unpleasant. Is that not just common sense? Is that not just how a sensible person lives? The Buddha thought about this very carefully, and what he found was both gentle and radical. He did not say that pleasant experiences are wrong. He did not say we should seek out suffering or deny ourselves every comfort. What he said was something more subtle and far more freeing. He said, as long as there is attachment to the pleasant and turning away from the unpleasant, the deepest peace remains just out of reach. That is a strong thing to say, and it is worth sitting with. Not to feel discouraged, but to feel curious. Because he was not describing a punishment. He was describing a pattern, a wheel, and he was offering a way to step off. Let us look at this wheel together, gently, without any pressure to solve it or fix it. Here is how it tends to go. Something pleasant arises. A beautiful meal. A kind word from someone we care about. A moment of comfort. And it feels good. Genuinely, truly good. And so we enjoy it. And that is fine. That is natural and human and lovely. But then it changes. The meal ends. The kind word fades into memory. The comfort shifts. Because everything, without exception, changes. That is not a gloomy statement. It is simply what we notice when we pay attention. The pleasant moment passes, as all moments do. And what happens next is where the wheel begins to turn. Because when the pleasant moment passes, something in us reaches for the next one. Already we are looking ahead. Already there is a quiet hunger for the next good feeling, the next comfort, the next reassurance that things are okay. And when we find it, we enjoy it, and it changes, and we reach again, and again, and again. The ancient teachers described this as a wheel, and it is a good image. Not a torture wheel, nothing so dramatic as that. More like one of those wheels that small animals sometimes run on. Always moving, never arriving. Always reaching, never quite satisfied. There is a certain exhaustion in it, if we are honest. A tiredness that has nothing to do with the body. It is the tiredness of always wanting the next thing. Let us explore a story about this. In a village at the edge of a green valley, there lived a potter who made beautiful bowls and cups. The workshop was a quiet place, with wooden shelves lining the walls, and the warm, earthy smell of clay always in the air. This potter was good at the craft and took genuine pleasure in the work. There was something deeply satisfying about shaping the clay, about watching a rough lump slowly become something graceful and useful under patient hands. But the potter had a habit. After finishing each piece, placing it carefully on the shelf to dry, there would be a brief moment of satisfaction. A warm feeling of completion. A quiet sense of, yes, that is good. And then, almost immediately, a thought would arise, so familiar it was practically a companion. The next one will be even better. So the potter would begin again, and the next piece would come out beautifully, perhaps even more beautiful than the last. And there would be that brief moment of warmth. And then, again, the next one. Always the next one. And so the shelves filled up, row after row of lovely bowls and cups, and still there was this restless feeling that the truly satisfying one had not yet been made. One afternoon, a traveling monk passed through the village and stopped to admire the pottery displayed outside the workshop. The monk picked up a small tea bowl and turned it slowly, feeling the weight of it, the smoothness of the glaze. "These are wonderful," the monk said. "There is real care in these. You must find great happiness in your work." The potter came to the doorway, wiping clay from both hands, and considered this. "I enjoy it," the potter said slowly. "But I am not sure I would call it happiness. There is always the feeling that I have not yet made the one I am really looking for. As if the right bowl is always just ahead of me, and I am always just behind it." The monk set the tea bowl down gently. "May I ask you something? That feeling, the one that says the next one will be the one that satisfies, have you ever stopped to notice what it feels like? Not the bowl it promises, not the future satisfaction it hints at, but the feeling itself, right now, in your body, in your chest?" The potter frowned slightly, as if the question were in a language not quite familiar. I suppose it feels like a kind of restlessness, a tightness, almost like a hand gripping something. Yes, the monk said. And when you finish a bowl, and for that one brief moment before the next urge arises, before the hand begins to grip again, what does that moment feel like? The potter thought about this for a long time, standing in the doorway with the afternoon light falling softly across the workshop floor. It feels like relief, the potter said at last. Like putting something down, something I did not realize I was carrying. Yes, the monk said, smiling. That is the taste of peace. Not in the bowl, not in the next one, not in anything you can make or find or hold. In the putting down. The potter sat with this for a long time after the monk continued down the road. And though the potter went on making bowls and making them with the same care and love as before, something had shifted. Sometimes, in the gap between finishing one piece and beginning the next, the potter would simply sit with the feeling of having put something down, not doing anything, not reaching for anything, just sitting in the quiet of the workshop, listening to the birds outside, feeling the warmth of the afternoon. And that quiet gap, that small moment of not reaching for anything at all, began to feel like the most precious thing in the workshop. More precious, even, than the most beautiful bowl on the shelf. This is what the Buddha was pointing to, again and again, with such patience and compassion. The peace we are searching for is not in the next pleasant experience. It is in the gap. It is in the moment when wanting falls quiet. And we have all tasted this, even if we did not have a name for it. Think of a time when you were truly at ease. Not excited, not thrilled, just at ease. Perhaps you were sitting somewhere peaceful, with nowhere to go and nothing to do. Perhaps the evening was warm, and you had just finished everything that needed doing, and there was simply nothing left to want. What was that like? If you remember, it was not a dramatic feeling. It was not fireworks or bliss. It was more like a deep exhale, a softness, a settling. The mind was not reaching for anything. And in that not reaching, there was a sweetness that asked for nothing in return. That is the peace the Buddha was talking about. It is not far away. It is not reserved for saints or monks or people with extraordinary willpower. It is here every time the wanting stops, even for a moment. We simply do not notice it, because we are so quickly off to the next thing. Like someone standing in a beautiful garden, looking at a map to the next garden. Here is a small experiment that the ancient teachers loved. You do not need to try it now. You are resting, and that is enough. But you might remember it sometime, on some ordinary afternoon, and you might find it interesting. The next time you notice a desire arising, something you want, it can be as small as wanting a snack or wanting to check your messages. See if you can pause before acting on it. Not to deny yourself, not to push it away, just to pause and notice. What does the wanting feel like? Where is it in your body? Is there a tightness, a leaning, a kind of heat? And then wait, because the desire will change. It always does. It might get stronger for a moment, and then it will begin to soften. And at a certain point, it will fade. And in that moment of fading, there is a gap, a breath of openness. The hand that was gripping has opened. And if you are paying attention, you will notice that the gap feels remarkably like peace. Not the peace of getting what you wanted. Something quieter than that. Something that does not depend on anything. It is the peace the Buddha called the happiness of renunciation, though that word, renunciation, makes it sound much more severe than it is. It is really just the happiness of putting something down, the happiness of an open hand. Now, it might seem as though the Buddha was asking something impossible. Let go of all attachment? Stop wanting entirely? Who can do that? And if we frame it that way, as some enormous mountain to climb, it does feel impossible. It feels like a demand that no ordinary person could ever meet. But there is a gentler way to understand this teaching, and it is the way the ancient teachers themselves often spoke of it. They called it short moments many times. We do not need to free ourselves from all wanting forever. We only need to notice, in this moment, what wanting feels like, and then to notice what it feels like when the wanting fades. Just this moment, just this one small noticing, and then, perhaps later today or tomorrow, another small noticing, and another. Short moments, many times. Each one of these small noticings is a taste of freedom. Not freedom from the world, not freedom from experience, but freedom from the grip, freedom from the wheel. And each taste, however brief, leaves a kind of imprint on the heart. Oh, this is what it feels like to not want anything. Oh, this is rest. The mind begins to learn, not through force or discipline, but through its own gentle curiosity, that there is something sweeter than getting what we want. And that something is the peace of not wanting at all. There is a teaching that comes from this understanding, and it is one of the most hopeful things the Buddhist tradition has to offer. It is simply this: the mind can be trained. Most people live as if the mind is fixed, as if the habits we have, the patterns of wanting and worrying and reacting, are just part of who we are, permanent as the color of our eyes. That is just how I am, we say. I have always been this way. But the Buddha saw something different. He saw that the mind is not fixed. It is fluid. It is always being shaped, always being influenced by what we pay attention to and by how we pay attention. And because of this, we have a choice. Not a forced choice, not something grim or effortful, but a soft, natural choice. We can begin to notice the patterns that cause us difficulty, the ones that keep us on the wheel, and we can gently, patiently, with great kindness toward ourselves, begin to let them soften. There is an old story about a traveler who came to a teacher and said, "I have two wolves living inside me. One is peaceful and kind. The other is restless and always wanting. They are always fighting. Which one will win?" And the teacher replied, "The one you feed." It is a simple story, but it carries something true. We are always feeding one wolf or the other. Every time we chase a desire without noticing, we feed the restless wolf. Every time we pause, even for a breath, and notice the peace that is already here, we feed the peaceful one. And slowly, over time, with no great drama, the balance shifts. Not because we forced it, but because we paid attention. This is not about becoming someone who never wants anything. It is not about flattening life into a grey, joyless neutrality. It is about discovering that we have been gripping far more tightly than we needed to, and that when we loosen the grip, even a little, life does not become less vivid. It becomes more vivid, more spacious, more free. The colors do not fade when we stop grasping at them. If anything, they grow richer, because we are finally seeing them clearly, without the tint of wanting laid over everything. The Buddha once said, "Just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so this teaching has one taste, the taste of freedom." That freedom is not something we need to go looking for. It is what naturally arises when we stop holding on so tightly. And this brings us back, very gently, to the theme that has been with us all evening. When we stop gripping, when we stop reaching, when we allow the wanting to quiet down, what happens to the one who was doing all the wanting? That busy, striving, never quite satisfied self begins to grow transparent. It does not vanish. It simply gets lighter, quieter, less solid, less like something we need to defend, and more like something we can set down. And in its place, or rather underneath it, we find something that was here all along. That same open, spacious awareness we touched in the first part of our journey tonight. It was never missing. It was just obscured by all the reaching. Like a clear sky that was always there behind the clouds. The clouds were never the sky. And the wanting was never who we are. To become no one is not an achievement. It is a relief. It is the moment when the potter puts the tools down and sits in the quiet of the workshop, listening to the birds, feeling the warmth of the afternoon on the wooden floor, and realizes, oh, this is what I was making all those bowls to find. Not a more perfect bowl. Not a better version of myself. Just this. This peace. This stillness. This feeling of enough, which was here all along, waiting patiently beneath the reaching. Let us rest here for a moment. Let the words settle. Let the mind be easy. And when you are ready, we will continue together. Have you ever woken up inside a dream? It happens to some people now and then. You are dreaming, moving through the landscape of the dream, perhaps walking down a street that is familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, and then something shifts. Some small detail catches your attention. A color that is too vivid. A doorway that leads somewhere impossible. And in that moment you realize, I am dreaming. This is a dream. And what happens next is remarkable. The dream does not end. You are still in it. The street is still there. The colors, the sounds, the feeling of the ground beneath your feet. But something has changed. There is a lightness now. A spaciousness. You are in the dream, but you are no longer caught by it. You can move through it with a kind of ease and playfulness that was not there before. The urgency is gone. The fear is gone. Because you know, even as you walk through it, that it is a dream. The Buddhist tradition suggests that something very much like this is available to us in waking life. Not as a fantasy. Not as a way of pretending the world does not matter. But as a way of holding our experience more gently, more lightly, with less of the heaviness that comes from believing everything is as solid and fixed as it appears. There is a teaching from the Buddha that is remarkable for its simplicity. He once described the whole of human experience in just 6 short phrases. He said, "The eye and what is seen, the ear and what is heard, the nose and what is smelled, the tongue and what is tasted, the body and what is felt, the mind and what is thought." And then he asked, with a kind of quiet confidence, "Is there anything else? Is there anything in your experience, anything at all, that falls outside of these 6? If you sit with this for a moment, it is quite striking. We live such complicated lives. We carry such elaborate stories about ourselves and the world. We worry about the future. We carry the past. We navigate relationships and responsibilities and 1,000 small decisions every day. And yet all of it, every single moment, is simply one of these 6 things happening. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, thinking. That is all that is ever going on. It is like discovering that the vast, complex novel of your life is written with only 6 letters. The stories feel endless and intricate, but the alphabet is astonishingly simple. And this simplicity is not a reduction. It is a homecoming. When we see it, something in us exhales. Because the complicated version of life, the one with all the stories and the worries and the tangled relationships, that version is exhausting to maintain. It takes tremendous energy to keep all those plates spinning. But the simple version, the one that says, right now there is hearing, right now there is feeling, right now there is knowing, that version asks almost nothing of us. It is already happening. We do not even need to do it. It is doing itself. Let us sit with this for a moment, because there is something deeply restful in it. Right now, as you are lying here or resting, what is actually happening? Perhaps there is the sound of this voice reaching your ears. Perhaps there is the feeling of your body against the surface beneath you, the weight and warmth of it. Perhaps there is the faint hum of a room, or the quiet of the night outside. Perhaps there are thoughts drifting through, soft and unhurried. That is all. That is everything. There is nothing else happening right now besides these simple streams of experience. And they are flowing on their own. You are not making the sounds happen. You are not generating the sensations. They are arising all by themselves, like ripples on the surface of a pond. And they are passing all by themselves, making room for the next ripple. You could stop trying entirely, and the whole show would go on without you. The hearing would continue. The feeling would continue. The breathing would continue. It has never needed your supervision. It has been flowing beautifully on its own since the day you were born. When we see this, when we really notice how simple and how effortless our experience actually is, something begins to relax. The feeling that we need to manage everything, to control everything, to hold it all together, it starts to ease. Because we begin to see that it is already holding together. It is already flowing. It has been flowing long before we started trying to direct it, and it will go on flowing long after we stop. This is what the Buddhist teachers mean when they speak of life as being dreamlike. They are not saying that life is meaningless or that nothing matters. They are saying something much more tender than that. They are saying that the solidity we attribute to things, the heaviness, the fixedness, is something we are adding. The experience itself is light. It is fluid. It is always moving, always changing, like images in a dream. Let us explore a story about this. There was a teacher who lived near a river, in a small hut, surrounded by tall grasses and wildflowers. The hut was plain, just one room with a low table and a few cushions, but the door was always open, and from inside you could hear the steady murmur of the water. Students would visit, sometimes from nearby villages, sometimes from much further away, and this teacher had a habit of taking them on walks along the riverbank as they talked. There was something about walking beside flowing water that seemed to make difficult questions easier to hold. One afternoon, late in the season when the trees along the bank were just beginning to turn gold, a student arrived looking troubled. This student had been practicing for some time and had heard many teachings, but something was not settling. "Teacher," the student said, as they began their walk along the water, "I have been trying to understand this idea that life is like a dream, but it does not feel like a dream to me. It feels very real. My problems feel real. My worries feel real. When I disagree with someone I care about, the hurt feels real. When I lose something, the grief feels real. How can I see it as a dream when it feels so solid?" The teacher nodded, and they walked in silence for a while, letting the sound of the water fill the space between them. A kingfisher flashed across the surface, a dart of blue and orange, and disappeared into the reeds on the far bank. Then the teacher pointed to the river. "Tell me, what do you see?" "Water," the student said. "I see the river flowing." "Look more carefully. Do you see the same water you saw a moment ago?" The student looked. "No, it has moved on. New water has taken its place. And a moment before that, different water again. It is always different water." "So," the teacher said gently, "is it the same river?" The student hesitated. "It looks like the same river. It has the same banks, the same shape, the same sound. But the water is always new." "Yes, and your life is like that. It looks solid. It looks like the same life from day to day. The same name, the same face in the mirror, the same relationships, the same worries, the same self. But if you look closely, everything is flowing. The thoughts you had this morning are not the thoughts you have now. The sensations in your body have already changed 10 times since we began this walk. Even the person who is worrying is not quite the same person who was worrying an hour ago. It is all flowing like the river. And when you see that, when you really feel it in your body and not just understand it with your mind, you can hold it all much more gently. Not because it does not matter, but because you see that it is not as heavy as you thought. It is not as permanent as you feared. They walked a little further, and the student noticed something. The late afternoon sunlight was falling on the water at a low angle, and the surface was alive with patterns, bright flashes and shifting ripples, constantly moving, never repeating. No 2 moments the same. And for a moment, just a moment, the student felt it. The lightness, the sense that everything was in motion, that nothing was stuck, and that this was not frightening, but beautiful. Like watching a dream from the inside, knowing it was a dream, and finding it lovely rather than alarming. "There," the teacher said softly, as if reading the student's face. "That is what we mean." When we begin to see life this way, something unexpected happens. Rather than making us cold or distant or detached, this understanding opens the heart. It makes us more compassionate, not less. This might seem strange at first. If everything is flowing, if it is all dreamlike, why would we feel more for others? Would we not feel less? But the opposite is true, and here is why. When we believe the world is solid and fixed, we tend to live with a certain tightness. We are protecting our territory, guarding our position, defending our view of things. There is not much room for others in that kind of living. We are too busy managing our own solidity. But when we begin to see the flowing nature of things, when we begin to hold our own experience more lightly, something opens up. We notice the people around us with new eyes. We see that they, too, are caught in the dream. They, too, are reacting to reflections, as we explored earlier tonight. They, too, are on the wheel of wanting, reaching for the next moment of comfort, pulling away from difficulty. And we feel for them, not with pity, which looks down, but with compassion, which looks across, eye to eye, heart to heart, recognizing, I know what this is like. I know how it feels. There is a story about this. A teacher was walking with a student through a busy market town. People were rushing in every direction, calling out, bargaining, carrying heavy loads, arguing over prices. The noise was tremendous. The student felt overwhelmed. How can you be so calm in all this chaos? The student asked. The teacher looked around at the bustling crowd with the softest expression, almost like a parent watching children play. I see the same things you see, the teacher said. But I also see something else. I see that everyone here is dreaming. They believe this is all solid and permanent, that the things they are chasing will satisfy them, that the things they are avoiding are truly dangerous. And because they believe this, they suffer. And because I can see the dream for what it is, my heart goes out to them. Not because they are foolish, but because I have been exactly where they are, and I know how it feels. The student looked at the crowd again, and for a moment, just a brief moment, instead of noise and chaos, what the student saw was a room full of people doing their very best, each one trying to find happiness in the only way they knew how. And something in the student's chest softened. The Buddha said, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. This kind of love does not come from effort. It comes from seeing clearly. When the dream becomes transparent, when we see through the apparent solidity of things, the natural response is tenderness. We see that everyone, without exception, is doing their best inside a dream they do not quite understand. And we feel a warmth toward them that asks for nothing in return. There is a beautiful image in the Buddhist tradition of someone who is both in the world and free of the world at the same time. Like a lotus flower growing out of muddy water. The roots are in the mud. The stem rises through the murky depths. But the flower itself blooms on the surface, open and clean, untouched by the mud below. It does not resent the mud. It does not wish the mud away. It grows from the mud. It needs the mud, but it is not the mud. This is perhaps the most beautiful thing about the dreamlike teaching. It does not ask us to reject our lives. It does not ask us to pretend that our difficulties are not real or that our joys do not matter. It simply invites us to hold all of it more lightly, to be the lotus, to grow from exactly where we are, through whatever murky water surrounds us, and to bloom. We do not need to leave the world. We do not need to escape our lives or become someone other than who we are. We only need to see clearly, to notice the dream while we are in it, to feel the flow while we are part of it, to remember, even as we walk through the market, even as we sit with our worries, even as we love and lose and try again, that all of this is passing through, like water through the river, like images through a dream. And this seeing, this noticing, is itself a kind of becoming no one. Because the one who needs everything to be solid, the one who needs to be right, the one who needs the world to hold still, that one begins to dissolve. Not painfully, not with any sense of loss, but the way a cloud dissolves in a warm sky, gently, naturally, leaving nothing behind but openness. And in that openness, life goes on. The river keeps flowing. The sounds keep arriving at your ears. The sensations keep rising and falling in your body. But there is no one gripping any of it. There is just this flowing, luminous, dreamlike moment. And it is enough. It has always been enough. There is a verse from the old teachings that captures this beautifully. It says, "As a star, a visual fault, a lamp, an illusion, dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, so should one see all that is conditioned." A star, a bubble, a dream, not because these things are nothing, but because they are precious and brief and shining, just like everything else. And when we see our lives this way, we can hold them the way we might hold a soap bubble resting in an open palm. Gently, carefully, with wonder, not with worry, knowing it will not last, and loving it all the more for that, because it is the passing that makes it beautiful. It is the fleeting that makes it dear. This is the freedom of the dream, not a cold freedom, not an empty freedom, but a warm, tender, wide-open freedom where everything is held lightly and everything is loved completely, where we can walk through our lives the way we might walk through a sunlit garden in a dream, fully present, fully alive, fully at ease, knowing that we are held by something much vaster than the dream itself. Let us rest here for a moment. Let everything be just as it is. And when you are ready, we will continue together. Right now, as you listen to these words, something else is happening in your mind. Beneath the listening, below the surface of your attention, a quiet stream is flowing. It has been flowing all day. It flows when you are busy and when you are still, when you are awake, and even, in its own way, when you are asleep. It is so constant and so quiet that you probably do not notice it is there. It is the stream of your thoughts. Not the big thoughts, not the dramatic ones that announce themselves and demand attention, not the worries that keep you up at night or the plans that occupy your morning. Those are the waves on the surface, the ones everyone notices. But beneath them, there is a much quieter current. Tiny thoughts, light as dust, little flickers of memory, fragments of imagined conversation, passing opinions, brief flashes of planning. They come and they go in seconds, sometimes faster than seconds, and most of them leave no trace at all. And yet, quiet as they are, these small passing thoughts are doing something remarkable. They are building something. Without our knowing it, without our permission, they are constructing, moment by moment, the feeling of being someone. This is one of the most fascinating things the Buddhist teachers ever noticed. They observed that the sense of self, the feeling of being me, is not a solid thing. It is not like a stone sitting in the center of our experience. It is more like a sandcastle, being built and rebuilt, grain by grain, thought by thought, all day long. And the grains are these tiny, barely noticed thoughts. If you were to catch one of these thoughts and look at it, you would find that most of them are about me in one way or another. A memory of something you said yesterday, a brief imagining of something that might happen tomorrow, a fleeting comparison with someone, a passing evaluation of how things are going. Me and my past. Me and my future. Me and how I measure up. Each one lasts only a moment. Each one is lighter than a feather. But together, unnoticed, they weave a kind of fabric. And that fabric is what we experience as the self. The Buddha once said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." It is one of the most quoted lines in all of Buddhism, and it is often understood as a grand philosophical statement. But it is also, and perhaps more importantly, a very precise observation about what is happening in our minds right now, this very moment, as these small, light, unremarkable thoughts quietly go about their work. Let us look at this a little more closely, because there is something wonderfully liberating in what we find. Most of these passing thoughts, if we were to sort them, would fall into one of two categories. They are either about the past or about the future. I said this. She said that. I need to do this. What if that happens? Yesterday, tomorrow, last week, next month. The mind is endlessly traveling backward and forward along a timeline, visiting places that do not, strictly speaking, exist. And that is the key. That is the liberating part. What is the past, really? Not as a concept, not as a word, but as an experience? If you look carefully, you will find that the past is a thought arising right now. A memory surfaces, an image appears, a feeling returns, and we label it past, and we feel as though we are reaching back to some other time, some other place. But we are not reaching anywhere. We are here. The thought is here. It is arising now, in this moment, and it will pass, like all thoughts do. And the future? The same. A plan appears in the mind. A worry. A hope. A fantasy. And we label it future, and we feel as though we are reaching forward, peering through a window into some time that has not yet come. But there is no window. There is just a thought, here, now, light as air, already dissolving. Let us explore a story about this. There was once a traveler crossing a wide open plain on foot. The land was flat in every direction, golden grasses stretching out to meet a vast and cloudless sky. The air was clean. A gentle wind moved through the grass. It should have been easy walking, a pleasant journey across beautiful country. But this traveler was struggling. Every step seemed heavy. Every mile felt like 10. And the strange thing was, there was nothing visibly wrong. No injury, no heavy pack, just a weariness that seemed to come from nowhere. A hermit who lived in a small shelter at the edge of the plain saw the traveler passing and called out, "Friend, you look weary. Sit down for a moment. Have some water." The traveler sat gratefully, and for a while they shared the quiet. Then the hermit asked, "Tell me, what are you carrying? You walk as if you have a great weight on your shoulders." The traveler looked down at empty hands. "I am not carrying anything. That is the strange part. My hands are empty. I have nothing with me. And yet, I feel so heavy." The hermit nodded slowly, as if this were the most familiar thing in the world. "Let me tell you what I see," the hermit said gently. "I think you are carrying 2 mountains. You cannot see them because they are not made of stone, but they are there. One is behind you and one is in front of you, and together They are enormous. The traveler looked uncertain. 2 mountains. The one behind you, the hermit said, is called the past. It is made of everything that has already happened. Every conversation you replay. Every moment you wish had gone differently. Every road you chose and wonder about, and every road you did not choose and wonder about even more. It stretches back as far as your memory reaches, and you have been dragging it behind you your whole life. The traveler was quiet for a long time. And the one in front of you, the hermit continued, is called the future. It is made of everything that has not happened yet. Every plan, every worry, every scenario you have rehearsed in your mind, every imagined conversation, every anticipated difficulty, every hope that things will turn out a certain way. It is just as vast as the one behind you, and you have been pushing it ahead of you, step by step, across this whole plain. But they feel so real, the traveler said softly. The things that happened, the things that might happen, they are real, are they not? Are they? The hermit said. Where is your past right now? Can you point to it? Can you touch it? The traveler reached back, as if to feel for something there. There was nothing. It is a thought, the hermit said. It is a memory arising in your mind, right now, in this moment. It feels like a mountain because you have been carrying it so long. But pick it up and look at it closely. It is made of nothing heavier than air. The traveler sat very still. And then, slowly, something changed. A lightness came into the face. A breath, deeper than any in hours, perhaps days. And then a laugh. A surprised, delighted laugh, like a child who has just been shown a magic trick and cannot quite believe it. There, the hermit said, smiling. How does that feel? Like I have been carrying bags of feathers, the traveler said, and believing they were stone. This is not just a pretty story. It is something we can actually feel for ourselves. And many people, when they first really see this, describe exactly that kind of laughter. The laughter of relief. The laughter of realizing that the weight they have been carrying, the weight of memory and worry, of regret and anticipation, was never as heavy as it seemed. It was heavy because they believed it was solid. The moment they see it is made of thought, it becomes light. Not gone, just light. Easy to hold, easy to set down. The Zen master Huang Po said, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." What he meant, in his characteristically direct way, is that we trust our thoughts far too much. We take them to be the truth of things. But thoughts are just visitors. They arrive, they stay for a moment, and they leave. They are not us. They are not the world. They are clouds passing through the sky of awareness, which, as we discovered earlier tonight, remains clear and open, regardless of what passes through it. Now, there is one more kind of thought in this quiet stream that is worth noticing. We have spoken about thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future, but there are also thoughts that happen right here, in the present moment, that are just as quietly building the sense of self. These are the thoughts of comparison. We do this so naturally, so constantly, that it is almost like breathing. We see someone and we compare. Better than me, worse than me, about the same. It can be about anything. Appearance, achievement, how calm someone seems, how together their life looks. We are sorting, ranking, measuring all day long, and each comparison is a tiny brick in the wall of the self. Let us explore this gently, with a small scene. Imagine you are sitting in a quiet room with a group of people, perhaps a waiting room, or a gathering where everyone is settled and still. You look around, and without any effort, without any intention, the comparisons begin. There is someone who seems very composed, very serene, and a thought arises. They have something I do not have. I wish I could be that calm. There is someone who seems restless, fidgeting, unable to settle. And another thought arises. At least I am doing better than that. I am more at ease. There is someone who appears about the same as you, neither more settled nor less. And the mind finds this curiously unsatisfying. Better than, worse than, those at least give us a position, a place to stand. But the same as leaves the self with nothing to work with, and so the mind keeps looking, keeps searching for a comparison that sticks. Better than, worse than, the same as. 3 small thoughts, each one lasting only a second or two, and each one, in that second, creating a self, creating a me who is being measured against the world. It is such a natural thing to do, so automatic, and so unnecessary, because here is what is truly happening in that quiet room. Everyone is simply sitting. Everyone is simply being. The composed person might be anxious inside and hiding it well. The restless person might be working through something beautiful and important. You simply do not know. The comparison tells you nothing about them. It only tells you that the mind is building again, grain by grain, thought by thought, constructing me out of thin air. The Buddha noticed this pattern with great precision. He spoke of it as one of the deepest habits of the mind, this constant measuring. I am better, I am worse, I am equal. And his suggestion was not to fight it or to feel bad about it. His suggestion was simply to see it, to notice when the comparing mind is at work, because the moment we see it, something wonderful happens. The comparison loses its grip. It becomes just another thought, just another cloud passing through. And in the space it leaves behind, there is something much simpler and much more restful. Just being here, just sitting in the room, without needing to be better or worse or the same as anyone at all. Just being nobody in particular, just being here. There is a beautiful teaching from the Buddha that touches all of this, past, future, and present. He said, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the further shore. Let go of the present. That is an extraordinary thing to say. Most spiritual teachings tell us to be in the present, to stay here, to arrive in the now. And there is wisdom in that, real wisdom. Coming back to this moment, letting go of the replaying and the rehearsing is one of the most healing things a person can do. But the Buddha went further. He said, let go of even this. Let go of the need to be here in any particular way. Let go of the comparing, the measuring, the evaluating that happens even in the present moment. Let go of the one who is trying so hard to be present, because even being present can become another project, another thing the self grabs hold of. I am being present now. I am doing this well. Am I present enough? The self can make a home anywhere, even in mindfulness itself. It can turn even stillness into a competition. So the Buddha's instruction is wonderfully thorough. Let go of the past. Yes. Let go of the future. Yes. And then, with a gentle smile that you can almost hear across the centuries, let go of the present too. Let go of the one who is holding on. Let go of the one who is letting go. And what is left? The further shore, which is not a place. It is not somewhere you travel to. It is what is here when you stop adding anything. When you stop building the sandcastle, grain by grain. When the quiet river of thought is still flowing, but you are no longer standing in it, trying to direct the current. You are sitting on the bank, watching, resting, and the river flows on as rivers do. And you are at peace, not because the thoughts have stopped, but because you are no longer mistaking them for who you are. This is perhaps the gentlest meaning of tonight's theme. To become no one is not to disappear. It is to stop building, to set down the mountains of past and future, to let the comparisons drift by like leaves on the river, to discover that when the construction project pauses, even briefly, what remains is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is warmth. It is the simple, quiet joy of being here, without the heavy work of being someone. There is an old Zen saying, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes, and the grass grows by itself. That is the feeling of this. When the building stops, life does not stop. Life keeps going, beautifully, effortlessly, the way spring keeps coming, whether or not we are there to supervise it. The grass does not need our thoughts to grow. The river does not need our worries to flow. And we do not need our mountains to be who we truly are. You can feel it right now, if you like. Just for a moment, let the thoughts be there without following them. Let the memories come and go without holding any of them. Let the future take care of itself. And notice what is here, underneath all the building. It is quiet. It is open. It is kind. It has been here all along, waiting for you to set the mountains down. Let us rest here for a moment. Let the river flow. Let the thoughts drift by like clouds, like leaves, like all the small and weightless things they truly are. And when you are ready, we will continue together. We have traveled a long way together tonight. We have watched a bird fly at its own reflection. We have sat with a potter in a quiet workshop. We have walked beside a river and watched the water flow. We have set down mountains made of memory and hope. And through all of it, a question has been quietly forming, the way a bud forms in the dark before it opens. The question is this: if all these things we hold on to, our perceptions, our wanting, our thoughts of past and future, if all of these are lighter than we thought, what is it that we are still holding on to? What is the last thing we grip, the thing so close we can barely see it? Tonight, as we come to the final stretch of our journey, we arrive at the heart of the matter, and it is both the simplest and the most surprising thing. Throughout this evening, we have been noticing the many ways the mind builds a sense of self. It builds it through our reactions, through our comparisons, through our stories of past and future, through our wanting. And each time we notice one of these patterns, it begins to loosen, like a knot that comes undone when you stop pulling at it. But there is one more thread, and this one is so fine, so close, that we almost never see it. It is the sense of being the one who knows. Right now, as you listen, there is hearing. There are thoughts arising. There are sensations in your body. All of these are being known. And somewhere in that knowing, there is a subtle feeling. I am the one who is aware of all this. I am the observer. I am the witness. This awareness, this is who I really am. It is the most natural thing in the world to feel this way. After all, we have been exploring awareness all evening. We notice that it does not suffer. We notice that it is like a sky or a mirror, unchanged by what passes through it. And it would be very easy, very comfortable, to settle into that awareness and say, here, this is home. This is the real me. And yet the Buddha, with the gentleness and precision that runs through all his teaching, pointed to something even beyond this. He said, by rightly understanding I am, one makes an end of suffering, not by defending I am, not by finding a more refined version of I am, but by understanding it, by seeing through it, by recognizing that even this most basic feeling, this sense of being someone who is aware, is itself something that arises and passes. It is not the ground. It is another cloud, perhaps the most beautiful cloud of all, but still a cloud, still passing through. This might sound unsettling. If I am not even the awareness, then what am I? Where do I stand? But the invitation here is not to figure that out. It is to rest in the not knowing. And what the ancient teachers discovered, what they kept trying to share with us across all these centuries, is that the not knowing is not frightening. It is the most peaceful place there is. Let us explore a story about this. In a monastery nestled in a valley between green hills, where the mornings were misty and the nights were full of stars, there was a student who had practiced for many years. This student had arrived at the monastery as a young person, restless and full of questions, and over the years had learned a great deal. The breath had become steady. The mind had become quiet. There was a real ability to watch thoughts come and go without being caught by them. The comparing mind had been seen and softened. The grip of wanting had loosened. By all accounts, this student had come a long way, and yet something was still not at rest. Something so subtle it was hard to name. One evening, after the other students had gone to sleep and the monastery was quiet, this student went to the teacher's room. A small lamp was burning. The teacher was sitting by the window, looking out at the dark garden. "May I ask you something?" The student said. "Of course. Sit." The student sat and for a moment just listened to the silence. Then, "I have made progress. I can watch my thoughts without following them. I can sit with discomfort without reacting. I can see the comparing mind at work and let it be. I have even started to notice how wanting feels in the body, and sometimes I can simply let it pass." "That is good," the teacher said. "But there is still something," the student continued. "There is still a feeling of me at the center of it all. The one who is watching, the one who is doing all of this noticing, the one who has made progress. And I cannot seem to let go of that. It is like the last wall in a room I have been slowly clearing. I can see it, but I cannot find the door through it." The teacher listened quietly, hands folded in the lamplight. Outside, a night bird called once and then was still. Then the teacher asked, "When you are watching your thoughts, who is watching?" "I am," the student said. "And when you watch that I am, what happens?" The student paused, frowning slightly. "I suppose another I arises to watch the first one. And another behind that?" "Yes. It is like a hall of mirrors. Every time I try to see the one who is seeing, there is another one behind it. I can never quite reach the end." The teacher smiled. "Then stop reaching. Stop trying to find the watcher. Instead, ask yourself, what if there is no one there? Not as something terrible, not as a loss, not as an emptiness to be feared, but as a relief. What if the watching is happening, but there is no one doing it? The way the rain is simply raining. No one is making the rain fall. It simply falls. What if your awareness is like that? Simply aware, simply knowing, with no one behind it." The student sat with this for a long time. The lamplight flickered. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a sound like breathing. The nightbird called again, further away now. And then something shifted. Not a dramatic awakening, not fireworks or thunder, just a quiet settling, like the last ripple on a pond going still. The student looked up, and there was a different quality in the eyes. Not more intense. If anything, softer, more open. "It is like the room got bigger," the student said softly. "The walls fell away, and everything is still here. The sounds, the lamplight, you, me. But no one is holding any of it. It is just here, on its own." "Yes," the teacher said. "That is rest. Real rest. The kind that does not depend on holding anything together. Because nothing needs to be held." They sat together in the quiet for a while longer, and the student noticed that the silence was not empty. It was full. Full of the sound of wind, full of the warmth of the lamp, full of the feeling of simply being here. And there was no one claiming any of it. No one saying, "This is mine. This is my peace. This is my awareness." It was just peace, just awareness, belonging to no one, available to everyone. There is a particular habit of mind that keeps this "I am" feeling alive, even when we are being very still and very aware. The ancient teachers called it the craving for becoming. It is one of the subtlest forms of wanting and one of the most persistent. Unlike the obvious desires, the wanting of things and experiences, this one hides inside our quietest moments. It works like this. We are sitting quietly. We are being present. Everything seems still. And somewhere, just beneath the surface, there is a leaning forward, a feeling of, I am being present in order to become more peaceful. I am watching my breath in order to reach a deeper state. I am letting go in order to feel free. There is a hidden in order to running beneath our stillness, like a current beneath calm water. We might not even notice it as wanting. It feels more like a direction, a gentle pressure, a sense that this moment is not quite the destination, but a step towards somewhere better. Even rest can become a strategy. Even peace can become something we are trying to achieve. And in that trying, that subtle leaning, the self sneaks back in through the back door. I am the one who is about to become peaceful. I am the one who is almost there. And this, in order to, is the craving for becoming. It is the feeling of being in this moment while quietly reaching for the next one, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the moment to deliver something, some result, some reward, some confirmation that we are doing it right. It is so subtle that we can spend years not noticing it. And yet it is the very thing that keeps the wheel turning. Not the big wanting, not the obvious desires, but this tiny, almost invisible lean, this whisper of not quite enough yet, not quite there yet, that keeps us just slightly ahead of where we are, always arriving, but never quite here. And this is where a very old phrase becomes something new and alive. In the Buddhist tradition, there is an expression that people often use to describe the moment of their deepest understanding. It appears again and again in the old texts, spoken by those who found what they were looking for. The phrase is, "Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away." We have all heard something like this before. Everything changes. Nothing lasts. It sounds like a statement about impermanence, and it is. But tonight, let us hear it differently. Let us hear it not as a philosophy, not as something to agree with or think about, but as a living instruction. Something you can bring into this very moment, the way you might bring a candle into a dark room. Whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. Feel what happens when you let that phrase settle in. Not in the mind, in the body, in the chest, in the belly. Whatever is arising right now, this sensation, this thought, this breath, it will pass. Whatever peace you might find in the next moment, it too will pass. Whatever restlessness, whatever calm, whatever joy, whatever heaviness, all of it has the nature to arise, and all of it will pass away. Without exception, without a single thing left out. And that without exception is where the power lives. Because the craving for becoming always has a secret hope. It whispers, yes, everything changes, but this next moment will be the one worth keeping. This next state will be the one that stays. And the phrase, spoken gently, truthfully, cuts through that hope. Not cruelly, not coldly, but the way the morning sun cuts through mist. Clearly, naturally, revealing what was always there underneath. And when this is really felt, not just understood but felt in the body, something remarkable happens. The leaning stops. The craving for becoming goes quiet, because there is nothing to lean toward, nothing to crave. Whatever you might reach for is already on its way somewhere else. Whatever you might try to hold has already begun to slip through your fingers. Not because the world is cruel, but because that is simply the nature of things. They flow. They arise and they pass. Like the river, like the dream, like the clouds in the sky of awareness. And in the moment when the leaning stops, there is a freedom that is hard to put into words. It is not the freedom of getting somewhere. It is the freedom of no longer needing to get anywhere. It is the feeling of stepping off a wheel that has been turning for as long as you can remember. The wheel keeps turning, as wheels do. The world keeps flowing, but you are no longer on it. You are standing on solid ground, feeling the wind on your face, and the wheel is just a wheel. It has no power over you unless you climb back on. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of the end of suffering. Not a world without change, not a life without sensation or feeling, but the end of the craving that turns every moment into a stepping stone towards some other moment. The end of the feeling that this, right here, is not quite enough, because it is enough. It has always been enough. We simply could not see it while we were on the wheel. And so we arrive at the deepest teaching of the evening. The words are simple. They have been offered for over 2,000 years, passed from teacher to student, in lamplight, in monastery gardens, in the shade of old trees. And the Buddha said that if you have heard them, you have heard everything. If you have practiced them, you have practiced everything. If you have realized them, you have realized everything. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Nothing. Not the body. Not the thoughts. Not the emotions. Not the stories of the past. Not the hopes for the future. Not the pleasant feelings. Not the unpleasant ones. Not the awareness itself. Not even the one who is trying to let go. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to. These words are not a command. They are not asking you to do something difficult. They are a permission. A deep, generous, ancient permission to put everything down. Everything. The whole beautiful, heavy, complicated bundle of being someone. All the roles. All the identities. All the stories of who you are and who you should be and who you wish you were. You can set it all down. Not forever. Not as some grim act of renunciation. But right now, just for this breath, just for this moment. And what you find when your arms are finally empty is not loss. It is not a void. It is not the cold, frightening emptiness that the mind sometimes imagines. It is the vast, quiet, luminous space that was always here, underneath the holding. It is warmth. It is peace. It is the feeling of coming home to a home you never actually left. This is what it means to become no one. Not to be erased, not to be diminished, but to discover that what you truly are was never the one who was holding on. It was the openness itself, the warmth itself, the peace that does not need a name or a story or a self to be complete. It does not need to be earned. It does not need to be achieved. It is already here, the way the sky is already here behind the clouds, the way the silence is already here beneath the sounds. You do not need to achieve this tonight. You do not need to achieve it ever. It is not an achievement. It is a letting go. And it can happen in any moment, even this one, even now, even in the simple, quiet act of resting here and listening. Just for a breath, let everything be held by something larger than you. The way the river is held by the valley. The way the stars are held by the night sky. The way every sound is held by the silence from which it came. You do not need to hold yourself together. You are already held. You have always been held. And in that holding, there is nothing to fear. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to become. There is only this warmth, this quiet, this breath, this peace. Let us rest here, in this quiet place. There is nothing more to reach for, nothing more to figure out. Just this breath, just this moment, just the gentle feeling of being here, with nowhere else to go and nothing left to carry. And when you are ready, we will bring our journey to a close, together. And so our journey comes to rest, Tonight, we walk together through some very old and very gentle ideas. We discovered that there is a knowing in us that does not suffer. We watched a small bird fight its own reflection and smiled at how familiar that felt. We sat with a potter who learned that peace lives in the putting down, not in the next creation. We watched a river flow and glimpsed the dreamlike nature of everything we experience. We set down the mountains we have been carrying, mountains made of nothing heavier than thought. And we stepped off the wheel, even if only for a breath, and felt what it is like to stop reaching. None of this needs to be remembered. None of it needs to be held onto. That would be its own kind of carrying, and tonight is about setting things down. If something from this evening stays with you, let it stay on its own. If it fades, let it fade. The teachings, like everything else, arise and pass away. And what remains, what has always remained, is the quiet, open awareness that needs nothing at all to be at peace. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to be. You can let the stories of the day dissolve. You can let your body grow heavy and warm. You can let the night hold you the way it has held every person who has ever rested beneath it. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Sleepy Monk.